Well, hello everyone. I'm here, I guess, to provide a little bit of a bridge between the huge-scale global and international and the local context, and to set the challenge and to put some parameters around today. And we're going to talk about something called the Peterborough model. I'm going to talk about what it is and why it came about, and I guess how we might be able to use this Peterborough model to help us solve some of the things that we so sorely and urgently need to solve in this city. And finally, I'd like to invite you to become, I think, relative experts in how energy works in Peterborough and the Peterborough area. Just a little bit of context about the Peterborough model itself. In 2009-10, three organisations that you see there, on the footer here, came together to consider an idea that was vexing us all, and we started talking to Peterborough City Council. And the problem that we were talking about, and I'll introduce the companies first. One was IBM, a big company that's recently got religion over the last few years about creating a smarter planet. I guess that hasn't missed you. And Ian Abbott-Donnelly, I see there, the Chief Technology Officer for Smart Cities for IBM is in the room. Royal Haskoning, a local employer who many of you will know, but a very capable environmental consultancy, and my much smaller business, Green Ventures, which is dedicated to trying to find solutions. I'm at the solutions end of the environmental problem. We came together and started talking to Peterborough City Council about something that was causing us some problems, like the clicker. Is it just a case of pressing it? Thank you. And the problem we face is the slow pace of change in cities. So a lot of time and a lot of money has been spent on sustainability and cities over the last 10, 20 years, and yet the pace of change is slow. Who has seen a huge transformation in any city around the globe, really? There's maybe a handful that have made significant and substantial changes. And so we considered this and we pondered it. And the results of those conversations are simply that perhaps cities are too complex at the moment, particularly in developed countries, particularly in democratic states as well. Very, very hard, given the complexity of cities, the socio-economic, the historical, cultural position that cities are in, to move things on at any pace at all. Add to that, we've got a very high cost of infrastructure in this country. They say that it costs, I think, about 30% more to build a kilometre of railway in this country as it does in France or Germany, our neighbours. And so we end up with this issue. We're in the midst of a recession. We have this much to do. We have this much money. We have very, very slow pace of change. And we've got a high cost of infrastructure. That's really not a pretty place to start. And there is a real need, a vast need, and a real hunger in cities to try and find solutions. And what we've done in Peterborough, I think, might point to some of the solutions that are required for the future, as Hugh Montgomery said. So we thought what we wanted to create here in Peterborough, amongst those organisations and with PCC, was a high speed, because the pace of change is so slow, low cost because of the cost of infrastructure, and largely online because we wanted people to be able to see it, way of being able to engender and help the pace of change for sustainable cities. In fact, we started with cities, and why not regions, and perhaps why not countries? Why can't you push this agenda forward at a greater pace? And the big thing that really underpins all our work and what you're going to see is we want to accelerate collaboration. We want to accelerate collaboration between the big players who run cities. And I don't just mean the city council, I mean the energy, water, waste, transport, green infrastructure, those people who need to make elegant, speedy solutions for us now and for the future. And that's what we want to do. So what you're going to see today is all about accelerating collaboration in a way that you can understand and you can see. And if you can just hold on to these next two slides and try and grasp them, then the rest will become easy. What we decided to do was to say, right, we wanted to be able to take data, vast amounts of data, as you can see on the bottom layer, managed by IBM, from all sorts of organisations in any way, and we wanted to be able to combine that data, and we wanted the brainy people, the smart people at Royal Haskoning, to be able to interpret and play with that data so that it could be pushed up onto a visual platform And that visual platform that we use in this case is Google Earth, but it might be Microsoft Bing, or it could be a geographical information system of another kind, but pushed up in a way that it could be easily understandable and combining the data of those organisations who very rarely see their data in one place: energy, water, waste, transport, etc. Does that make sense? You all nod. But importantly, we wanted to be able to marry that process, because that's a techie, boring, information-led process, with a process of human collaboration, gathering the organisations, their technical people and their directors, to talk about how they might be able to use the data and the information that's been created out of it, and the visualisation that tells people about how a place functions, to design better solutions for the future. So that human process is exactly where we're at, because this is about accelerating collaboration. And the reasons we wanted to do that is that we wanted to get value out of existing information. Peterborough is a great example of a city that is hugely well-researched. It's such a well-researched city, but often that you can't see the information in the energy report, in the water report, or the transport report, in the health report. So we wanted to be able to get value from that information. And we wanted to be able to build a much better common understanding of the big issues in a city. So this is the first picture of the live model that we create in Google Earth, and that's just the city water challenges. You may not be able to read them, but we've been able to condense them down to 3 main challenges. This is work done using our process in Glasgow, and this is about fuel poverty, but how multi-agencies and organisations can come together and work out how to better target big issues. So where are the places they want to make fuel poverty interventions in Glasgow, amongst lots of agencies and utilities. And I like this picture. I like this picture a lot, because I'm told through IBM and Royal Haskoning, it's shown nationally and all over the world. And it's a picture of somewhere over there called Dogsthorpe. And it's a picture of Dogsthorpe landfill, and what it shows is how much space is left in Dogsthorpe, and when that hole is going to be filled. And once that hole is filled, there is no more credible landfill in Peterborough. So if you want to start communicating as a local politician or as an activist about what we do for waste in the future, let's start with the reality, because much of what we can see much of what we have to work with is invisible. Atmospheric pollution, energy, and often waste. Once it's out of your door, you never see it. So we want to be able to make those things visible. And then, when there's data out there, information out there, it's not always the big organisations that I think should have their information more visible. Sometimes communities, and this is Glinton and Peakirk's own information on the model, when communities have good information, when they have a story to tell, why can't they get information up that can be more freely and publicly and easily available in one place? And again, information is often so dull, so why can't we take this sort of stuff that resides in databases in utilities and bring it up and put it on video and YouTube and on the web, and show where good things are happening and bad things are happening? This is more of a regional scale view, and there's no need to understand what's underneath here. And we started in Peterborough in 2010, and it took us about 6 or 9 months to gather the information of some of the key organisations, these and many more, and start building a more common understanding in Peterborough of how things worked. More recently, another local project we've done, it's taken us 3.5 months to gather the information around the Greater Peterborough and Greater Cambridge-Lep area of, I think that's about 20 organisations, including people who aren't used to moving particularly fast. Cambridge University, HM Treasury, Anglian Water, apologies if there's anyone from Anglian Water in the room, and all the way through to Forest Heath District Council and Uttlesford. Now for us that's a kind of triumph, because the public sector and all the organisations around it need to be able to work at this kind of pace, to gather their information in 3 months, be able to start talking about their priorities in the next 3 months, because that's where we have to get to at the solutions end of sustainability. Now what we create is actually, to some extent, fairly simple. We create a single view in a democratic place on Google Earth for these people to be able to work with, a normal sort of thing that you click down and are able to compare and contrast different things. But also, at the end of our work, we often package up, and I know some of you have seen this before, but little ideas, vignettes, things that we think are important. So we're going to play a few fly-throughs about Peterborough, and it's how energy works in Peterborough. But before we do that, we'll just introduce Peterborough through a 45-second fly-through. Fly through, please. Any fly-throughs? The man in the box waves. It is showing on the big screen. Oh, well, it's not showing on the little screen. So what we have here is Peterborough. You've just seen that where Peterborough is coming over London. There's our local authority boundary. You don't often see that. Here are population centres. And very interestingly, we have a city where we have substantial growth. If the city grows as planned, it's going to grow by this much, by over a third in the next 25 years. And how to do that sustainably is a huge, huge kind of factor we need to think about. It's the home of the mighty posh. Why not? Let's make this a bit human. But also, it's a city that, as per most cities in developed countries, it's heated by gas and it's powered by electricity. Our electricity is also derived from gas in Peterborough, so we're very gas dependent. And if you want to package up Peterborough and communicate what it is, where it is, how it works, very basically, we've just done that in about 40 seconds, 45 seconds. And now on to energy. So a little bit about how energy works in the area. And this comes from an amalgam of data from the energy companies and other utilities. So what we have here, Peterborough Local Authority, you can see up here on the top left. We have the national grid coming in with Sizewell nuclear power station. That's 2.2 gigawatts of power, a vast engine, a new reactor going to be built there in the next 10 years. One closed off as well. We have the national grid running to the west and to the east. You'll notice that it doesn't connect into the east. In a second, you'll see the super substations coming in around the regional grid, which is what you're seeing in orange there, yellow-orange. Super substations, no connection to the east. To the west, all connected to the east. And two little dots, the two ones with dots in are gas-fired power stations, smaller power stations, one in Kings Lynn, one in Fengate. There is a field called Walpole. That's where our electricity comes from. It's kind of just by Kings Lynn. It's in a very low-lying area, and that's where we get our juice from the national grid. Now, as I mentioned before, we have Fengate power station just over here. Now, Fengate is a merchant power station operated by Centrica, and it spins up when it can sell electricity over to the national grid, more than being here to power the city. That's not its sole purpose. It's here to make money out of electricity, largely. And for those of you who've seen the wind farm developments around the city, you'll know that there are a lot of wind farms. But after our work, we can show that only 4 of those wind farms connect in to the national grid. So what we've got here is only a very small amount of renewable energy, a little bit more solar recently, coming into the city. But actually what that shows is that our fuel mix as a city is no better, as an environment city, than most other cities. In fact, our CO2 emissions are perhaps even slightly worse, looking at national stats, because we're very car dependent. But what we do have in Peterborough as a city is we have a fantastic energy study. And that energy study shows that we need to tackle domestic energy first and tackle it most urgently. But just to give you a stark picture, when the wind is blowing on a cold day, that is how much green energy we are creating in Peterborough at the moment. And the yellow is how much gas is being produced, and the red is how much is coming in between the grid and our local power station. So if we want to hit the kind of targets that we were talking about today, we have some very, very big thinking that we need to do in this city. In fact, all cities have some very, very big thinking that they need to do. But we are beginning to be able to visualise that and communicate it and have the right people talking about it. So you've just seen one part of the Peterborough model. I've got a couple more slides somewhere on here as well. You've just seen one little corner of the Peterborough model. And I guess... Oh, I'm sorry about that. I've got another bit. In fact, I've got the important bit. If you like this. So how do you cut in to a problem like this? I didn't know I was going to roll onto this. I like this bit. We looked at, in 2009, the energy ratings of about 22,000 homes of the 60,000 housing stock in the city. And this is, by postcode, how houses perform. And you see there are big blocks of good performance, and there are some blocks of very bad performance. So we can now see that by area. So if you want to cut into this problem, we can start looking around the city in a more granular way, between the big agencies, between the housing associations, between the utilities, about where good and bad performance exists. We can fly over and see some of the southerly suburbs, not the poor places, often have very bad performance as well. And then we come to, and I'm glad we got to this bit, we come back to where we started in Glinton. David Cowsell's in today, the head of Glinton and Peacock Green Group. And what Glinton have is they have their own energy programme going on. It's becoming very successful. It's very organised. They're beginning to tap a very large, really, really substantial amounts of funds because they can communicate what they're trying to do and how they're going to achieve it. And what we have here is a bit of a case study at the demand side of the equation. So we talk about needing to create new solutions at the supply side for renewable energy and that kind of stuff. But a lot of the real things that are going to happen at the demand side. And Glinton is a real beacon of a place that's serious about trying to save energy, and it is getting an awful lot from that. As a small parish, it's actually got a lot of funding, a lot of focus, and a lot of benefits from that. So, if I can finish, I guess that you've just seen one bit of the Peterborough model. And we know, Ian will tell you from IBM, there are cities all over the world hungry, really hungry for solutions for sustainability. And if we can begin to show a lead in this area, and if we can just even begin to unravel a couple of the really big issues that exist out there, there will be vast benefits for this city and for the people of this city, and the future generations in this city. And I think it will be great for our self-confidence and, of course, for our reputation. So if we can get to grips with this, I'm sure good will come of it.